Hey guys, it's your boy Tacho here, and we are back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. Now today we're going to go ahead and do an update for the Heroic Grails tier list that I made way back when. Now that tier list was a little bit wonky. I mean, most of the tier placements that I had did back then were actually for the most part pretty accurate. But I did get a ton of comments from you guys, and I took all of those comments into consideration here, and I may not have responded to every single comment that was on the old video, but I did read all of them, and I took my time to just weigh in on all of the opinions that you guys had to offer for me. So I just want to say thanks so much to everyone for leaving all those comments. It really helped me out, and it really helped me flesh out the tier list a little bit better. So I mean, comments are always going to be helpful. If you guys want to leave a ton of comments on this tier list video, that's going to help us out too, because once I go ahead and update this tier list again in the future, those comments are going to help out. So please, I'm begging you guys to leave as many comments as possible because they all matter. Alright, so with all that out of the way, we are going to be taking a look at the update to this Heroic Grails tier list. Now, to start us off in the S tier, we have two changes. So Iago's a new character, and he's been added, and I just immediately threw him up into the S tier. He's basically just the second coming of Aversa, where his weapon effect does some crazy shenanigans to debuff the foes and inflict status effects on them. So Iago's Tome, on even-numbered turns, he's going to inflict the Panic status, which is more in line with what Aversa does. And on odd-numbered turns, it's going to inflict the Guard effect on the foes, which is crazy good. Also, it flip-flops between the foes being adjacent to allies or not being adjacent to allies. So it's a really nice tome for disrupting the foes and just throwing a wrench into their plans. And the reason why I've got this guy up in the S tier is because there's really no other unit that can do the same thing that he does, even among the 5-star exclusives. So if you want to invest in Iago and go for the plus 10 merges on him, it's going to be really helpful. Also, because his weapon effect works based off how much HP he has, the plus 10 merges are really going to help him out a ton. So Iago is a really good unit. And another change we've got to the S tier is Brunya. So Brunya was in the A tier, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I had been sleeping on Brunya, because I had knew that she was really good since back then. But, I mean, she is actually way better than I thought, so I had to bump her up into the S tier. She is like the best mage-type bait unit you can run in Aether Raid's offense. Her ability to just negate any active penalties on herself and then gain +4 to all stats is just so crazy. She has a premier BST at 162, which ties with units like Kyria and Lysithea. So even among the 5-star exclusive gacha summons, this Brunya has a BST that can rock with the best of them. So Brunya totally deserves to be in the S tier in my opinion. She's a really great unit. So that's pretty much everything to cover for the S tier changes. Now in the A tier, unfortunately one unit actually did get bumped down, and that was Nesala. Now, to be honest, he could still potentially be in the S tier. He's just really that good. But I don't think there's too much of a reason to have him on a pedestal above units like Pan and the Lil Minerva. Because, I mean, all three of them are essentially just really good Gale Force units, so they're awesome on the player phase, and each one of them has some unique little kinks about them that make them better or make them stand out. So, of course, Nesala has the +7 true damage on his weapon, and he gets 3 movement if he's able to transform at the start of the turn. And these flying units with 3 space mobility is just so crazy. They can fly over all the obstacles and just shred everybody. So those are Nesala's strengths. Now, in the case of Pan, she is a cavalry type, so she can automatically move 3 spaces whether she transforms or not. And her weapon effect also negates the foe's chance of doing a follow-up attack, so she's sort of like a blue version of the Day 1 Eliwood. I mean, of course, Blazing Durandal is a little bit better than Pan's weapon, but that's not to take anything away from Pan's weapon. Her weapon is still very good, of course, with a whole bunch of weapon effects attached to it. And with the Kid Minerva, she was a recently added unit, so I decided to bump her into the A tier. I feel like she is the best player phase free-to-play axe unit that we have at the moment. Her BST is very good for a flying unit, and she also has her unique A-slot skill, which is essentially just Iote's shield with +3 to all stats. So a very good perf skill there. And of course her weapon does -1 special cooldown trigger, so she's going to be very good as a Gale Force unit. And flying Gale Force units have the edge, of course, because when you're player phasing, being able to avoid the obstacles and fly over any of those mountains or trees or whatever is going to be very good for Gale Forcing. So I do think Minerva has the edge over units like Linus and Raven in that regard. We've also got Ashnard, who was added to the game, and I decided to just put him into the A tier right away. Just like Minerva, he has Iote's shield built in. And Ashnard is a very interesting unit because he can play a supportive role with his weapon effect that does -5 attack and defense on the foes that are within 2 spaces of him. And he can also bait quite effectively because you just give him distant counter, and then because his defense and res are so insanely high, and with the -5 attack from his weapon, he's going to be a premier bait unit for sure. And he basically scores in the same bin as units like the Black Knight and Zephyl. So I don't see any reason why Ashnard should be any less than the A tier. Now for Bartre and Hinata, they are also newly released units, and I decided to put both of them in the A tier. That's because in the same regard as units like Halloween Dorcas and Loveabound's Elliewood, they are able to outscore the infantry dual skills. So if you care about arena modes and arena scoring, then going for the +10 merges on any of these units that can outscore the dual skills are going to be very useful for you, of course. And it's not like Bartre and Hinata are slouches either when it comes to combat. I mean, Hinata essentially has the exact same stat spread as the Halloween Dorcas. There's only just minor differences between them. But Hinata is an infantry type unit, and Dorcas is an armored unit. So already Hinata has one thing that he can put over that Halloween Dorcas. Now, Dorcas is, of course, an armored unit, so he can have Bold Fighter, which is pretty crazy based on how high his attack stat is. But when it comes to Hinata, I mean, he can have lull skills if he wants. He can run Null Sea Disrupt if you want to use that. So having access to the infantry locked skills is also going to be real good. And because his HP is so good, he can also go for Infantry Pulse to support the team. So I feel like Hinata deserves his spot in the A tier, and very much all the same arguments apply to Bartre. He is almost a carbon copy statistically of the Halloween Dorcas, so I don't see any reason for him to not be in the A tier, especially when he's an infantry class just like Hinata, and he's free to run all of those good infantry locked skills. So that just about covers us for the changes in the A tier. So next up, we've got the B tier, and we do have some interesting jumps in here. So Ursula actually managed to get her refine since the last time I made this tier list, and she bumped up all the way from the D tier into the B tier. So her refine, what it does is it's going to give her the Broadly Fan effect, and it's also going to give her effective against cavalry. So a pretty nice refine, and something that she definitely needed. I mean, this Ursula's attack stat is kind of low for a player phase unit, but with the damage bonus that she can gain from the Broadly Fan effect, she's going to be able to hit the foes a lot harder now. We also recently gained the duo Micaiah, so if you wanted to be a real jerk, you could stack Ursula up with the duo skill from that Micaiah and just give her true damage based on the foe's debuffs, and give her the Broadly Fan effect from her refine. So Ursula became a whole lot better, and now she's definitely comparable more to the Valentine's Titania that we have. So two really good free-to-play mage horses in the game now. Really nice stuff. Okay, also the little Azura was bumped up. I had her in the C tier before this, but I mean, a lot of people in the other video were making comments that there's really no reason for Azura to be any lower than Renea. Now, me personally, I still actually think Renea is better than the little Azura, even though she has a perf weapon and Renea doesn't. I mean, Renea has Silver Goblet, which is essentially just Distant Guard 3 built into a weapon. And sadly, there is no green tome variant of that for the little Azura to inherit. So even though the little Azura has her own perf, she's not able to run something like Bronze Goblet or whatever they would call that skill. So that is one benefit in favor of Rinea, of course. Being able to support your allies with a Dancer is exactly how you want them to play. But I mean, the Azura is still very good, and even though her BST is way less than Rinea's, once you calculate in the stat bonuses that she can gain from her perf weapon, they are still pretty comparable for the most part, so I decided to bump her up. Now, Navarre was also bumped up from the C tier, and depending on what you want to argue, this guy could also be bumped up into the A tier, because his refine is super good, and I have no idea why I slept on this guy this badly. A lot of people in the other video were commenting about this. So Navarre gets Scarlet Sword as his refine, and it's -1 special trigger, which is already like one of the best weapon effects in the game. And it also gives him the It's Curtains effect, where he starts off the fight with -2 special cooldown count. That is very good, of course, especially for player phase units like Navarre. And if you wanted to run him as a Gale Forcer, he's going to be one of the best choices for that. So there's no reason why Navarre should have been in the C tier, and I apologize for that, guys. So, I mean, even if you wanted to argue him being in the A tier, I wouldn't even question that too much. So, actually, let me know in the comment section, guys, how you feel about Navarre, and do you think he should be in the A tier or the B tier? Because I actually have no problems bumping him up to the A tier. And the final change that we have for the B tier is Conrad. Now, a lot of people in the other video were also questioning the placements for Xander and Camus. And yes, I know his name is Camus, but I am not calling him that. I'm sorry to offend anybody, but I am just going to call him Camus because it sounds better. So, Conrad is essentially on par with these two. I mean, statistically, they are very much equal, but Conrad has a boatload of res, while Xander and Camus do not. So, if you're running them as bait units, then Conrad does have one leg up on those two. But of course, Xander and Camus have built-in distant counter, which is still one of the best things you can have on a weapon. I know by this point it's kind of been power crept since we got the Fallen Ike just recently, and he comes with distant counter and a whole bunch of stat bonuses potentially. But built-in distant counter is so good because the A-slot passives only keep on getting better and better. Like, we have Distant Defense 4, and we have Stance Level 3s and Stance Level 4s that you could give to Xander and Camus and just really up their potential as bait units. So I'm still going to be a little bit adamant here about dropping Xander and Camus down to the C tier. Let me know in the comment section, actually, how you feel about them, and do you think the built-in distant counter effect is worthy enough to keep them in the B tier, while the A-slot passives just keep getting better and better? Or do you think I'm wrong, and do you think they should be in the C tier? I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys' opinions on that. And last up, in the C tier, we do have a couple of changes here. So, Jamke and Corin M, both of them were bumped up from the D tier. Now, Jamke in particular, he was getting a whole lot of support in the other video, because apparently Akaris likes to run this guy a lot in Aether Raids. Now, the Flyer Ball setup was the reason why Jamke was so good back in the day. Because, of course, Flyer Balls were one of the best Aether Raids defense setups you could go for. But that's not so much the case anymore, so, I mean, Jamke kind of fell off. He didn't really have as much utility as in the old days. And if you're comparing him to some of the 3-star and 4-star summonable bow units, like Norn, for example, then Jamke's deficiencies really start to become apparent at that point. But he's still not too bad, and in the case of Corin M and Jamke, they both gained access to the Spendthrift Bow, which is one of the dumbest weapons in the game. It's arguably the best inheritable weapon we've ever gotten. And they can also use Close Foil as well, so they can raise their defense, which was already quite good, and raise their attack as well as counterattack against any of those physical type units. So Jamke and Corin M actually got a lot better since the last time we made the tier list, and they deserve to be bumped up. And finally, Narshan also gained his refine, which is the Rune Axe. And every time he hits the foes, it's going to recover 7 HP for him. So it's a really nice weapon for sustain and also for baiting because it gives him a whole bunch of stat bonuses as well. And Narshan's overall stat line wasn't too shabby. His stat distribution overall was pretty decent. It didn't hold up too well though because, I mean, a lot of units we've been getting can just stack their stats like crazy. So Narshan did kind of fall off a little bit, even with his refines, so I feel like C tier is fair for him. So that's going to wrap us up for the changes to the Heroic Grails tier list, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it, and like I said like 50 times in this video, please let me know in the comments section what your thoughts are on all of these changes, and if you think certain units should be getting more of a push or certain units should be bumped down. All of the comments really help, especially for a tier list like this, because I'm just one person. I mean, my opinion is not the only one that matters. So I really want to look to you guys' opinions as well. And that's all for today. So hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, this is your boy Tacho signing out. So cheers, and I'll catch you all again next time.